Hi everyone. So the purpose of this video is to discuss the major objectives of Lab 4, Chemical Symbols and Nomenclature, and also to kind of walk you through major steps, some things I just want to point out to hopefully make this lab easier for you. And then just to let you know and remind you to let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so Lab 4, Chemical Symbols, what that refers to is, your atomic symbols with your atomic number, your mass number, all those things. And then nomenclature, what that refers to is naming. So it's just a fancy word for naming compounds. And it's about, the process, the rules for naming compounds. So that's what you're learning about chemical symbols for atoms and also their isotopes, and also to practice naming. So as always, intro provides some really good information that is usually a recap of what has happened in lecture. As you know, I always stagger the labs so that they are, the content of them are after you have already learned it in lecture, ideally. So some of this you've probably already been introduced to, but that's okay. As always, try your best to read through the intro, to skim through it and see what some major important points could be, or to just refresh and review and maybe highlight some things. So just a recap on what atomic number, mass number are, how to get number of neutrons, how chemical symbols look. So very short little intro for just atoms, and then we go into nomenclature. So you will notice that nomenclature is super long. I'm not going to scroll through it because I don't want to make you dizzy, but essentially it goes through all the types of naming. Ionic naming, how you name polyatomic ions, or what the names are, and how you use those names of polyatomic ions to name ionic compounds. And then you go into molecular, another word for molecular, or aka covalent compounds. Those are the same thing. So if you hear molecular compound and covalent compound, that's the same thing. So molecular naming, and then hydrates and also acids. So a lot of different types of naming. Like I said, I don't want to scroll through because I don't want to make you dizzy in the video, but just to show you and to point out, there's some examples, very useful. They explain, they break down step by step some chemical symbols, what they're called, all those types of things. So here is the procedure for both part 1 and part 2. You will notice the procedure is very short today, and that's okay. You have a lot to practice with in both part 1 and part 2. So part 1, what you're doing is you are using the information given to either determine the symbol of an atom or isotope or ion, or you're using the symbol and you're going the other way around to determine the atomic number, the mass number, all those things. You will need a periodic table, so just have that with you either on your phone or on your tablet, iPad, on another screen, whatever it is that you like to use. If you like to print it, of course, just do that, have that with you so that it makes things easier. And then at the end, once you're done filling everything in, draw arrows between all pairs of atoms, or sometimes it's 3 of them. Draw arrows between them to show that they're isotopes of each other, and that you'll finish part 1. Part 2, in the nomenclature part, similar to part 1, where you are going back and forth, from information to chemical symbol. Here for nomenclature, you'll be going back and forth between formulas to names. So you're going to do that for ionic, you're going to do that for covalent and acids, and then you're going to do that for hydrates. So it kind of becomes intuitive once you complete a few here on table 1, and then once you complete like one of the first tables, in other words, table 2, on part 2, you'll kind of get the gist and hang of it. So let's go ahead and go to data collection. So here in part 1, like I said, either you're given the symbol or you are given the information about atomic number, mass number, number of neutrons, all of that. So it's either one or the other. But you absolutely do actually have enough information to fill everything else in. I made this table or I adapted this table, and I changed, the types of atoms and everything, and I made sure that you have enough information to fill everything in. And at the end of this last column is the charge. This first example here is hydrogen. So this shows you how everything should look, and it gives you an example. And then remember that at the end, once you get everything filled out, you will draw some arrows, or you can color code however you want to show me that there's isotopes of each other here on this table. And then part 2, like I said, it's either you're going from name to formula or formula to name. So you're pretty much doing that for all these tables, for first ionic and then covalent and then hydrates. And then finally, to finish this lab off, you will be completing this table now that you know so much about naming and about what's an ion versus what's an isotope, all these different types of things. Now that you know all of that, you are able to classify compounds, hopefully. So hopefully by now you know, okay, ionic compounds are metal and a nonmetal, molecular compounds are nonmetal and a nonmetal. So now that you know those things, you can sit here and look at this and say, okay, carbon's a nonmetal, oxygen's a nonmetal, so that means it's a molecular compound, and then go ahead and name it. So you're going to do that for all of these. And then you're going to answer a few questions. I believe it's 5 of them, yeah. And you are going to answer them using complete sentences. And that's the end of this lab. As always, let me know if you have any questions at all.